Mike Pompeo, now former Secretary of State and Fox News contributor. Great to see you this morning.
Great to be with you, Harris.
You have been all around the globe. You know how these things work. What's your take on where we are today? Some countries coming forward, China doubling down, and now the EU.
Yeah, I'm unsurprised by that division. Most of the countries want to come lower their barriers in response to what President Trump did, but the Chinese taking a very aggressive posture. That was my experience as Secretary of State as well. They are an adversary, and the Europeans are friends and partners, right? Very different situation. I'm hopeful that President Trump's mission set is to get these tariffs to go away, right? To get access for American farmers. I'm from Kansas, to get American farmers the ability to sell stuff into Asia and into Europe in ways that they have been prevented from doing. That would be a good purpose, a good objective for these tariffs. But I'm also not, when we talk about collecting more revenue, it's like I'm not a big government guy. Like, I like less revenue for our federal government. I want a smaller, more limited U.S. government than the one that we have today. And I know President Trump and his Doge team do as well.
Absolutely. Let's dig in a little bit about China. And so President Trump goes to 104, China goes to 84. I actually was surprised they didn't match. And look, I'm not trying to be either pessimistic or optimistic. I just know them to be someone who, as you described, is almost an enemy. You were gracious with, they're not our friends and they're adversaries. But they feel like an enemy. The COVID pandemic made me think they're enemies.
Amen. Look, I'm a little surprised, too. They're clearly testing. It does, as I think Secretary Besson said earlier, it does impact their economy more than it impacts ours. They will feel this first and more. And so they're probably looking to see if they can't back President Trump down. But they are the ones that instigated this problem over the last 40 years. They've been at war with the American economy for 40 years, stealing our stuff, dumping product into America, hurting American manufacturing. And so it's unsurprising that now this tariff regime is going to end up pretty focused on the conflict between the Chinese Communist Party and free market, free trade believers all across the world.
What about the Chinese people?
They'll be net losers in this. I'm not sure that Xi Jinping gives a rip about his own people. He wants to stay in power for sure, but he's not worried about their livelihoods. He's just worried about what his stated objective is, which is to corrode the Chinese empire. And he's been hard at that, and I'm glad that President Trump is pushing back against it.
Yeah, I mean, again, look, it's not a shocker that they would do this, but there is a lot at stake for them, too. Formerly directing the CIA, you know a little bit about what they'll do to us in terms of intellectual property and all of that. Talk to me about where they can go.
So the Chinese Communist Party is very powerful. They have a very capable military. They have a capable space program. They've got a big nuclear weapons program.
We pray it would never come to that.
Yes, but we shouldn't forget that hard power is what backs up all these economic discussions as well. And so you saw, it was last week when they encircled Taiwan in an exercise. They are demonstrating that they have other tools with which to impose risk and costs on the rest of the world. And they'll see if we blink first, Harris. That's what they're trying to do.
Wow. Okay. Well, so far, the president's not blinking. He might be winking at this point, but he's not blinking. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt called out the left's hypocrisy on trade policy. Watch this.
Democrats have long said that the United States of America has been ripped off by the countries around the world. They just don't want to admit it now because it's President Trump who is saying that. In June of 1996, Nancy Pelosi spoke on the House floor. She urged her colleagues at the time to fight against the status quo trade policies that had contributed to America's trade deficit with China. In 2007, Chuck Schumer spoke of our nation's crippling trade deficit, saying these are the kinds of records the American people don't want us to be breaking. Recently defeated Democrat Sherrod Brown said on deficits in 2012 that our deficit then at China had reached an all-time high, and it was on pace to recede. These are the words of Democrats years ago. It is about time America finally has a president who is taking action to restore those millions of jobs back to the United States of America.
All right, so what we're putting on the screen for you now is a breakdown of the trade imbalance with other countries. This gives you a taste of what President Trump has been looking at. So we'll continue to do that throughout our conversation with Secretary Pompeo. Look, Democrats, we know that they are not totally against what's happening because Biden kept some tariffs in place that Trump had previously.
Yes, Harris. I think, in fact, he kept nearly all of the tariffs on China that President Trump had put in place, as well as most of the steel tariffs, the metal tariffs that have been put in place as well. So, no, they're not against. This is politics for them. But this is too important to be about politics. This is about heartland jobs. I think about the fact, I ran a machine shop in Wichita, Kansas for years. We made stuff. We sold that product all across the world. Cessna built airplanes that they sold to Europe and to Asia and to the Middle East. We need to make sure that our markets are open for American manufacturers. And when we do that, there's nobody that can outcompete the United States.
What puts pressure on China when you know we're talking to Vietnam, and a bordering country with China, when you know we're talking to others in that part of the world? Look, they'll come to the table, get a deal. Does that complicate things for relationships with China? For those countries in China?
It definitely complicates for them. Those Asian countries have not only the United States as a major trading partner, but they've got deep trade relationships with the Chinese Communist Party as well. And so it does make things complicated for them. But they're going to have to, in the end, they're going to have to decide, do they want access to the most important intellectual property, the most important customers, the most important country in the world, or do they want to side with a communist regime that is almost certain to end up on the ash heap of history? I think they're going to pick the United States as their partner.
Having been to Vietnam not too long ago, not even a year ago, they are also a bordering communist nation, but they're different. They're also looking toward the relationships with the West, as you described.
Yeah, very much so.
It is great to see you.
Yeah, it's wonderful to be with you today.
Thanks for being here in person.
Hello, everyone. This is Outnumbered. I'm Kayleigh McEnany here with my co-host, Emily Compagno and Harris Faulkner. Also joining us, Carly Shimkus, Fox & Friends' first co-host, and David Asman, Fox Business anchor. Well, let's start here. President Trump's reciprocal tariffs on imports from dozens of countries came into force at midnight last night. That included a 104% tariff on China. Now, China retaliated this morning. They increased tariffs on the U.S. from 34%, taking it up to 84%. And Trump hit back at China, standing by his plan to save America's manufacturing jobs in what was quite a speech last night.
Right now, China's paying a 104% tariff. Think of it, 104%. Now, it sounds ridiculous, but they charged us for many items 100%, 125%. Many countries have. They've ripped us off left and right. But now it's our turn to do the ripping. We have tariffs on automobiles, aluminum, steel, separate from the other tariffs, the baseline we call it. Companies are pouring back into our country with plants. I know what the hell I'm doing. I know what I'm doing, and you know what I'm doing too. That's why you vote for me. And don't let some of these politicians go around saying, you know, because I'm telling you, these countries are calling us up, kissing my They are dying to make a deal. Please, please, sir, make a deal. I'll do anything. I'll do anything, sir. I'm proud to be the president for the workers, not the outsourcers. The president who stands up for Main Street, not Wall Street, who protects the middle class, not the political class, and who defends America, not trade cheaters all over the globe.
I mean, he says it like it is. You know, Scott Bessent came out this morning. Everyone rapidly watching his remarks. He was on Mornings with Maria. He gave a speech at 8:30, much anticipated. So the companies and the countries, rather, are coming to us, and we are negotiating back. Listen to Scott Bessent this morning on negotiations.
We've been overwhelmed with the response to come to D.C. and negotiate. So President Trump on Monday had a very good call with the Japanese Prime Minister. He had a very good call with the President of Korea yesterday. We're seeing a delegation from Vietnam. So I think we have about 70 negotiations lined up. I'm not planning on going anywhere for Easter.
You know, David, he said that he will be the lead negotiator, and it gives me a lot of comfort knowing that Trump and Bessent will be at the helm of these negotiations.
Well, and you worked with this team in the first administration. I mean, they're not exactly this team, but Kevin Hassett was there in the first administration. He was. Kevin Hassett and Bessent are kind of the soft side of this issue, whereas Peter Navarro and Howard Lutnick are the hard side. They're the hardliners. Now, you did have Peter Navarro coming out last night criticizing Vietnam, saying even though they've lowered their tariffs to zero, their own tariffs, that is for U.S. products, that they should still have high tariffs. That's part of the problem. I like the idea of reciprocal tariffs. It's very simple. You tariff us, we're going to tariff you back the same way. But this goes a little beyond that because of the Navarro equation for tariffs includes things like trade deficits. Now, there's some countries out there, poor countries, that just don't have the money. They make and the Vietnamese make about $10 a day. They can't afford to buy U.S. goods. That's why they have trade deficits. I'm thinking that shouldn't be necessarily part of the equation. I get the non-tariff barriers. There are some of those. Those should be hit back. But Just putting trade deficits in there is not. So you have these two sides, the hardliners and softliners, and then in the middle, you have the big kahuna, Donald Trump. And he is a businessman. He knows how to negotiate like nobody on earth. He knows what foreign businesses are like because he has foreign businesses as part of his portfolio. So I'm kind of confident that in the end, what's going to happen is going to be, whether it's individual deals with these 70 countries that want to come in. Again, the big deal is China, whether or not they're going to soften their rhetoric right now and come in for a deal. They have nowhere else to go. They need us a hell of a lot more than we need them.
So notably on China, this is the fascinating part. I had our team put this together. Bessent saying that China has more to lose, and I want you to listen to his rationale, but very carefully listen to the last 15 seconds of what I'm about to play. I think it's Bessent giving us an insight into exactly what the administration plans to do with China. Listen to this.
I think it's unfortunate that the Chinese actually don't want to come and negotiate because they are the worst offenders in the international trading system. They have the most imbalanced economy in the history of the modern world. And I can tell you that this escalation is a loser for them, that they have some very smart, the economists, the academicians, technocrats within their bureaucracy, and they would be telling the leadership that we do not have the edge here. I think, Rob, at the end of the day, that we can probably reach a deal with our allies, with the other countries that have been long-term. They've been good military allies, not perfect economic allies, and then we can approach China as a group.
Emily, so creating deals with these countries and as a group going to China, that's a brilliant plan.
It is brilliant, and it underscores how deep of an impact China has had on so many countries. And I want to point this out, which is important. For the past 40 years, China has been essentially growing its power over the American consumer. And I think most American consumers don't even really realize that. Pick everything up in your house, look behind every label, and it's all made in China. And to the tune, you pointed it out, that goods trade deficit. Guys, last year alone, it was $300 billion that we owed them. And when you look at lost American jobs, some estimate as much as 4 million American jobs have been lost between 2001 and 2018 because of that trade deficit that China had all the power over. And here's where I think a number is important too. That because of that deficit, because of the lack of power we have had in the past, we had to subsidize our farmers to the tune of $27 billion. Well, guess how much of that was tethered to China? Almost 26. So even when we are bailing out our farmers from a situation that our dependence on China created or the lopsided tariffs created, we still have to depend on them to bail them out. So, number one, yes, the power is now up to us to wrest back, and we certainly have it for leverage. And secondly, when you hear them resisting this writ large, because they are anti-Trump or simply resisting change to the status quo, it is the status quo that is unsustainable for us to move forward. So put your seatbelt on during this acclimation period, but believe me, the future is better than the past.
Harris, I think it's important to understand Trump's philosophy when looking at this issue. And I want to play a soundbite from 2018. It's one that Art Laffer found and Stephen Moore in the pages of the Wall Street Journal this morning. They reminded us of an ultimate goal that Trump laid out all the way back in 2018. Listen to this.
No tariffs, no barriers. That's the way it should be.
I think go down.
And no subsidies. I even said no tariffs. Ultimately, that's what you want. You want a tariff-free, you want no barriers, and you want no subsidies.
So that's him saying it. He doesn't just love tariffs. He wants a world with no tariffs.
Yeah, I mean, I totally get that. But because of the deficits, I also hear what David is saying, that some countries, that's going to be difficult because they basically technically owe us money. So that's going to be hard. How much pressure do you put on them? So tailored deals is how the president is putting this. And the longer that you wait to get in with the president, I would think, just based on all the people who are talking, from Navarro to Lutnick to Donald Trump Jr. even. I know he's not an elected politician, but he's got a lot to say about this because he's watched his dad over the years do deals. The longer you wait to jump in with what you think you want to do a deal about, you kind of lose your place in line. Yep. And you got to be careful because China could end up being last, and they could get that group of countries to go with the United States. And the group of countries could be the bordering communist nation of Vietnam. And it could be a situation where, yeah, you tell them that you're going to claw back based on those deficits, but you keep them close by doing that because maybe there's a little bit you'd give back to have them join your group. Yeah. Oh, I get it. And I recently read the book again, Art of the Deal. The one thing, though, and I'm going to beat this drum, and I know people online have been hitting me with it. If you had planned to retire and you're 70 and you don't have your health, and you thought your nest egg was going to be what it was 6 months ago and it's not, you may not be able to work longer to wait for the market to come back. The faster this happens, the better for those people. Yes. And I really say that with all my heart because they're at the end of life where you don't just go, Skippy, go get 3 jobs like we were in our 20s. I'm closer to that end than the 20s, obviously. So that is a calculation to make, and if anybody can make it, it's the President of the United States who knows that people are coming to the table, and he knows how quickly this can change. So my money's on America.
You know, Carly, Art Laffer and Stephen Moore talk about the ultimate exit strategy in the pages of the Journal I mentioned. They say this: Mr. Trump should give a globally televised address announcing to the world that the U.S. is ready to drop its tariffs and industry subsidies to 0 tomorrow on any nation that does the same. It would be enlightening to see which supposedly free trade nations accept Mr. Trump's challenge. Who better to pull that off than the greatest art of the deal negotiator in world history?
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic idea. And also, I thought that it was very fascinating, that clip that you played on what Scott Bessent said, because, you know, he's talking, one of the major concerns is that, you know, these tariffs will drive our allies closer to China. And he's saying, oh, quite the opposite. Could there be some sort of NATO-style trade union against China? And that could be the end result of all of this. So I think that's pretty fascinating. President Trump has lived through bad news cycles in the past and has, in the end, said, I told you so. So I think for better or worse now, that is the mentality that's driving him forward. And the good news is that there are signs that he is willing to make a deal, because he has said, I'm willing to negotiate here. Now you have the Italian Prime Minister coming next week, Japan and the United States negotiating right now, the Israeli Prime Minister earlier this week saying, I'm willing to do literally anything, just drop the 17% trade on our country. So these deals will be made. The one thing is you can't wait too long, or else you're going to politically give Democrats ammunition. Chuck Schumer would love to run on a recession. So the president knows that and will likely avoid that.
Can I just say one thing? The leverage that we have with China, coal. Yesterday, the president signed an executive order to unleash our coal industry. They have 1,400 coal power plants in China. We only have 200. The fact that they have so many coal power plants, they need our coal. I think that could be part of the trade negotiation with China. And Trump is thinking about that. Don't forget about coal.
And imagine what that leverage would look like if you had free trade deals with the nations around the world and then came to China with all of that.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.